Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee on the 15th of January, 16, 17, 18, 19, 5 days to Trump. And it's 9:44 in the morning, and we're at 59 degrees already. We'll be at 68 with sunny, which means we get free hot water heating today. Not all the way, but close to all the way. In other words, the water will get to be like room temperature plus, and we'll just put the hot water heater on the electric one for a few minutes and it'll push it up. All right, I'm checking the chat and I'm going to put some posts up there while people are coming in. And I'll get my email address up and we'll get going. Just a few seconds. We'll get going real quick. Okay, looking good. And done. Okay, we'll get going. Start with some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. Well, we'll have to wait for the trolls to come in and put their garbage up. I don't know what kind of life these people have that they consider this, a good, enjoyable practice to run around into live streams and put stuff up when all the moderators just block them. But, they probably have ways of getting new accounts and using proxies. And, it's just what a life, huh? I mean, feel sorry for them, And they get the big SBOT channels too. So they're not necessarily SBOTs, they're just deranged, people that are not adjusted to life, And of course, most of them are teenagers or younger, I don't know. All right, so we'll discuss what's going on. The LA wildfire, as I told you yesterday, the amount of news you're getting on that is going way down, so they don't want that getting spread. The fires are expected, the winds, which are hitting hurricane force still, are expected to continue until noon California time today, Wednesday. Now, it's probably, I'm guessing, almost midnight or around midnight in California, so they got about 12 hours of winds. I would speculate you're going to see these fires continue to burn and spread for at least 2 to 3 days, 2 days minimum, I guess. And then the containment will begin, I expect. And then I would say by Wednesday next week, they'll have things relatively under control. Unless more winds come in or something else happens, we don't know. They could predict what the winds are going to be like with reasonable certainty, probably for a couple of days out. But we don't know what's going to happen. Now, it could spread south and south to San Diego. Now, as far as I know, San Diego's not under evacuation or any kind of serious alert that people are probably moderately concerned or quite concerned even. I would expect with the winds blowing south, the air quality in San Diego is going to fall apart. Probably already has. Now, there's massive American Navy bases or base in San Diego, big stuff. Okay, so that's an interesting occurrence. As far as I could tell, the fire has not done any significant damage in Beverly Hills. I don't think it's gone into Beverly Hills. I was thinking the winds would have to go east to get it into Beverly Hills, and apparently that didn't happen. But if it gets down, it's already in Ventura County. This thing is huge. There are about 13,000 structures destroyed. I think 25 or 26 people have been killed. But I don't think they've sufficiently gone through to get out the doors. They'll probably find some more. I don't think they're going to find 100 people or anything like that. They may find 10 or 5 or something. You know, they'll find a few people, I guess. Sad, but they will. I think Biden is talking about giving people $700 and something if their houses were destroyed or something like that. What are you going to do with $700? Go to a hotel for what, 2 or 3 days? What are you going to do with it? You know, the government does not help the people in disasters. Their rationale, this is me thinking, is that if God wants to punish us and give us this, you know, floods or hurricanes or fires, let God take care of his people. We're not. That's how they think. They have no fear of God. God starts a fire. Oh, we got firemen, you know. Oh, houses burned down. Oh, heck, we just build new houses. A long list of the A-listers, the high-ranking, high-profile people in the entertainment business, have had their houses burned. I don't know how many, but I would say it's got to be at least 20 or 30. It might be 100. I don't know. But it's a lot. And there's a lot of people that are influential in entertainment that are not household words. Producers, directors, writers, screenwriters, you know, you don't know who they are. You wouldn't recognize them. Their names don't mean anything really. And they've probably lost their houses as well, you know. Mel Gibson, Paris Hilton, Kamala Harris lost their house, you know. But I mean, there's a big list. I haven't searched to see if you could find a big comprehensive list of them, but it probably exists somewhere. I don't know. Maybe not. But they're not, you know, they mock God. And that's the hub of the people that mock God using entertainment, music, movies, TV shows. They're the ones. And they got hurt hard because their big hub is in the Southern California area around Hollywood, Studio City and stuff like that. So I don't know why they cut the news down so much on it, but we'll see what happens. Now, there's people talking about smart meters. People are saying, the house next door burned, it had a smart meter, my house didn't burn. I don't buy into this at all. There's always going to be false narratives to convince the people God didn't do this. But when you look at it, the governor had hurt the water supply. The fire hydrants were running dry. Okay? The humidity was 10, 15%, maybe 20%, which is 40% is low humidity. 10 to 20% is a desert. Okay? It's like really dry, which is prime conditions. And it was a dry season, and then add in the winds, and you have it. And they had a lot of fire NATOs, which is not normal. And I'm not buying arson started it. Were there arsonists that ran around 2 or 3 days into the fire trying to increase the fire? Sure, there were. There were idiots all over the place, you know. And was some of them, I think they caught one that was a terrorist from another country, Kazakhstan or something, with a flamethrower or a blowtorch or something. You know, yeah, you can always get this kind of thing. Now, open border Biden, apparently what I was hearing is that yesterday, the geofencing for the drones was defeated by Chinese drones. But now it's coming out that that's not it. It appears that this hater of America, Biden, killed the geofencing for drones. So now people that did not just recently, in the last days or month or so, buy a drone from China that could defeat geofencing. No, it appears that America stopped the geofencing. That's the same as opening the border to the sleeper agents. You got that? So drones could now fly around airports, government buildings, military bases, and things like that. But they were sending electric signals to drones to keep them out of the area. I don't know exactly how it worked, but apparently it's not working now. On a 10 scale, for the White House to do this, I would say it's a 9.5 that they're an enemy of their own country. Just like the open border. The open border is a 9.99 that they're an enemy of their own country. You could even just say it's a 10. It's really a 10. And the geofencing's a 10 also. Really. So Biden is, in my book, with the beast, trying to get rid of the horse system, which apparently Trump seems to be leaning towards. Although I'm questioning it now, but I don't think so. I think he's still in the horse system. So what's going to happen? Is this fire just because America's been pressuring Israel so bad? Let me give you an example. There's still a lot of bombs that were promised to be given to Israel that have not yet been delivered. Okay? I don't remember the exact count, but it was reasonably substantial. Okay? 139 armored bulldozers that Israel really needs not being delivered. So Biden is still being a butthead towards Israel. He doesn't want Israel to win anything. But now Trump is falling in the same path as Biden. Trump's envoy went to Qatar for the negotiations between Hamas and Israel. And it's leaking out that whichever side messes up the ceasefire is going to catch the wrath of Trump. That's Trump, who never did away with Obamacare, who was sitting next to Obama at the Jimmy Carter funeral, laughing and chatting with him. The lip readers are not, I don't, let me talk about lip readers. Many, many years ago, I had a friend that left the CIA, okay? He was really a CIA operative, no doubt about it, okay? And one day the subject of lip readers came up. I don't remember how. And I had a background in law enforcement, which is, we don't use lip readers, I never got any training on lip readers, I don't think. very many law enforcement agents ever do. Possibly, I don't think it's common in law enforcement, federal maybe. So anyway, they and what he told me is he says they don't work. You put two lip readers on it and they start having arguments or fights over what the people say. They don't get it. Now, there are people that are deaf that seem to be able to read lips, but they're typically doing it at a very close distance, and I really don't know how good they are at it either. So, it looks like it's not effective. That being said, if you study Israeli news, online pictures of the famous politicians in Israel having conversations with each other or talking to each other in the Knesset, for instance, or in other government buildings, they always go like this, or like this, or like this, or like this, or something. Or, you know, they're always covering up their mouth and their lips when they talk to each other. So lip reading has to be effective. At least Israel knows how to use it. Or their politicos wouldn't be doing it all the time. Netanyahu constantly does it. Let's see if Trump starts doing it after this little, meeting with Obama over there, which was probably random. The interpretations the lip readers came up with, there was two different ones. They made no sense. I don't think they know what they're doing. Does that mean the CIA and the NSA don't know what they're doing? I don't think so. I think they do know, or Israeli top-ranking guys wouldn't be doing it all the time with 100% consistency. Now, I also had a friend that was retired from military intelligence, which is the Army old counterintelligence corps with a new name. Oh no, he was sorry, he was with wait a minute, what was it? He was with them, yeah. And he briefly worked with the voice stress analyzer people. Now, what is that? In the very early 80s or late 70s, some people came up with a voice stress analyzer. It was a machine that you talked into. And they would ask you a number of questions. It was like a lie detector. Lie detectors don't work. Okay? If you study it on the internet, lie detectors are an interrogation tool. People think they work. Now, there were some cops, I think they were in LA or Miami. They never got in any real trouble, but what they were doing, they would bring these street punks into a room where they had a very big Xerox photocopier. And they had a piece of paper that said lie on it. And they kept it on the screen to copy. And when the guy said something that they thought was a lie. They pushed the print button and it came out and they showed it to the guy, look, you lied. You see, now it's the mindset of the cops, okay? So the lie detector measures galvanic skin response, blood pressure, they put stuff around your heart, and it detects stress. If you practice for 3 or 4 hours the techniques to beat it, you'd beat it. It's that simple, okay? They call it beating the box. They can't tell if you're lying. They can only tell if certain questions make you get stressful. But it's easy to beat it. I mean, the stupid Hollywood version is you put a thumbtack in your shoe and press it down when you tell the truth so you get a high response. But that's not how the serious people do it. It's very easy to learn. And if you're taking a lie detector test and you tell them you studied this technique, they just won't give you the test. Lie detectors are not admissible in court. One reason people will think it's because it would help convict people they don't want to get convicted, but it's really it doesn't work. Okay. So they go to school for, I think it's even 6 months. And what they're learning is, in reality, interrogation. Using the lie detector as a means to coerce the person they're interrogating. So one of their frequent techniques is they just shut the lie detector down and the guy turns around and says, okay, come on, I'm shutting this off. Let's have a serious conversation about this now, Sometimes, if he's saying a prosecutor may tell the defendant to take a lie detector test with the police. Sometimes a defense attorney will offer his guy will take a lie detector test. A lot of times they go through it. It's a highly skilled interrogation. Okay? And the interrogator can learn on the uninitiated person a lot of areas in the interrogation that appear stressful to the person they're interrogating and then probe deeper in those areas. The voice stress analyzer was a simplistic thing. Instead of going to school for 6 months to learn how to use it, I don't know, you probably learn how to use it in a half hour, but I mean, it probably was a week. Maybe 2 weeks, because they want to instill interrogation skills in the person. You talked, the microphone picked it up, it gave a level of stress, and they were thinking, they determined who could lie, but who was lying, but it was, also ruled not admissible in court. It's not real. A lot of companies used it, and I think they still use it. They're not that expensive. I mean, you could probably find a bogus one for $100, But I think the real ones are probably $5,000 or $10,000, where the polygraphs could be more. But the polygraph requires a lot of training. This didn't. Here's the microphone talk, and then they watch the graph to show the stress. That was simple, you know. Well, this guy that worked for him told me the thing really worked. I don't know. He wasn't the type of guy to lie to me. I mean, this guy was like, he used to carry lockpicks with him. Once we were at a meeting, and there was a room, and it was cold in the room, and they had a thermostat with a plastic box around it where you needed a key to get in and reset it. He goes, "No, I'll fix it." He picks the lock in like a few seconds, changes the thermostat, puts the lock back, and locks it again. You know. Now he was retired. That's a bad sign. Okay. So the problem they had with the voice stress detector is people were using it on politicians on TV. They were coming up with lies. They did it to Nixon. But I don't think it really works. But nobody else seems to. The other thing I'm told really doesn't work either is when they pick up a bullet fired from a gun, they look at the grooves and the rifling on the bullet, the projectile, and they say they could match it to the gun barrel. I've been told, well, I've read about it, that this isn't real. They just use it as a bluff on people. But there are lawyers and expert witnesses out there that will go to court and defeat it. But few people know about it. Once I was at a gun range and the owner showed me a trick to clean guns. He took the copper brush and he put it in an electronic drill where the drill bit would go. He put the brush in. It was a long one. And then he put it in the barrel of the pistols and turned the drill on. And it would clean that gun barrel spotless. You know, you put hot peas in there, hot piece of oil, you know. And, well, the cleaning solution he put in there. And, in less than a minute, the gun barrel would be sparkling clean. Now, I expect that probably changed the rifling and groove pattern in the barrel. But if it didn't and you did it for 3 or 4 minutes, I'm pretty sure it would. But, you know, in the old days with J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI was legally, it may still be the case today, was legally able to transcribe or type out a lawful wiretap or eavesdropping in a house or a room. They would have a secretary, according to them, listen to the recording and type it out. And they were allowed to use that typed out text of the recording in court without having to produce the actual tape recording. And it would be admitted as evidence. And if the defense demanded to see the actual recording and hear it, they said they destroyed it. They didn't save it. And it was lawful. And what's that tell you? People back then used to say, oh, you could tell your phone's being tapped and stuff. You can't. Back then you couldn't. Because we didn't have cell phones. So the phone companies have a division called security division. I don't know what they call it today. And they would watch their own employees for corruption and stealing, illegal activity, whatever, right? But they also ran background investigations on key people, but they had a room in there where the wiretaps went. And you couldn't get in there. Only the security people or known law enforcement could get in there with the security people. And you couldn't tell if your phone was tapped or not. It was impossible. Unless you had some sort of electronic meters or something, you couldn't tell. So the mafia guys would get into the habit of not even having a phone in their house, a landline. They wouldn't even have a phone. So many people got caught using the phone. They just stopped. They uninstalled their phones. They had a, the guy would have staff. He'd usually have, at least 2 or 3 guys hanging around his house to run errands, bodyguard, stuff like that. Answer the door. So the house was never unattended. So getting in there and planting a bug would be about impossible because there was always somebody in the house. And there was no telephone in the house. So for communication, you had to talk to one of his underlings who would convey it to him. And they knew there was no bug in the house. Because of the constant presence of somebody. They got to have the house empty to go in and put bugs in. Okay. And then there came Hoopla. They were able to monitor voice in the house by reading it off the panes of glass. So what did they do then? Well, they put double, triple pane glass in, which would reduce the vibration, or put a curtain up. That would do it, So the government, for many years, has been making claims that they can do things that they really can't do. But with the voice stress and the lie detector, it was too dangerous to the courts, to the elite. So that stuff was ruled not admissible. But I really, to this day, I'm not sure if the voice stress analyzer works or not. I think it does. But this guy was a sharp guy. He might have had some allegiance to the company they worked for briefly. He might have liked them, and he said it worked because he had some feelings for them. I don't know. I really don't know. it's a way. Now police jobs are stupid to get and they're easy to get, but a few years ago they were hard to get. And one of the easiest ways to get on police departments is put yourself through lie detector school, and you know then you start applying, and they realize you're a graduate of the lie detector school, so you're a certified operator, and you know all of a sudden you go up to the top of the list. I mean, they want to hire women, they want to hire people of different minorities and religions and all this stuff to satisfy quotas. They want to hire people with military skills, things like that. But a lie detector, certified lie detector operator, my gosh, they go crazy for that because they got to send their guy, I think it's 6 months of school, maybe three. Maybe they were six and now they're three. But they not only have to pay for the school for this cop to go to it, and they don't hire rookies. They hire a guy that's in a detective, probably a rank of sergeant or equivalent, or lieutenant, or even captain. Uh, and they got to pay his hotel. They got to pay his per diem. He needs money for food and expenses, cabs, or whatever, right? And pay his salary for either 3 or 6 months. And the school's not that expensive. It is if you got to go get a hotel, but if there's a school near you and you can commute, it's very not that much money. I think they probably have classes of 8 to 12 people or something like that. And they practice on each other, and it's not very difficult. Non-college graduates would pass with flying colors. Then you'd apply for a police department, and they go crazy. They say, "Oh man, let's hire this guy." And if you wanted to be a sworn personnel because you wanted the badge, you didn't want speeding tickets, you wanted the gun, you'd probably find a department without much trouble at all that would be willing to put you through their academy. And, you know, they'd probably tell the people at the academy, we need this guy to make sure he passes. Like if you were trying to get a job in San Francisco with a lot of Chinese people 50, 60 years ago and you knew Cantonese and Mandarin, they'd put you through the academy and they'd tell the people in charge of the academy that if this guy doesn't pass, you're fired. They wouldn't do it that way. They'd just say, this guy's very important to us, so make sure he passes. So if this guy had trouble understanding law, somebody would sit down with him in the evening and explain it to him over and over. If he couldn't get through the obstacle course, somebody would work with him after hours with exercises and training and, maybe help with a diet or whatever. If he couldn't shoot, somebody would sit there and coach him. You can teach somebody to shoot, I've done it many times, practically anybody. Okay? As long as they want to learn. The other way that was easy to get a job as a cop was become a paramedic. You'd be surprised how many agencies go crazy to hire a paramedic because, again, they're not easy to come by, and paramedics generally don't want to be in a police environment because you're hardly ever using your paramedic skills. You might go 2 or 3 months without ever using them, so you get rusty. But if someone just wanted to get on a good police department, that would push them pretty far up the totem pole. EMT, which is not a paramedic, that's usually a 6-week course, would help also. All the sheriff's departments run county jails, and they would be very, very welcome to have an EMT or especially a paramedic. But then you're working in the jail a lot. But a lot of times they want them to, they can put them on the scene when there's a dangerous situation without SWAT or, they just like that stuff. Another way to do it, which is pretty stupid, is become a lawyer. And about 30 years ago, police departments started hiring lawyers. They'd send them to the academy, they would become a police officer, and then they would have them sit in an office near the chief and the captains, not so much the captains, the higher ups, the commanders, the sheriff, the undersheriff, the high up would consult with him on things. The lawyer would be available to help regarding getting search warrants, stuff like that. When they get sued, the lawyer would not represent the police department, but would be able to work with the law firm representing the police department and to be a liaison and explain to the cops what's really going on. Stuff like this. But that's pretty stupid to go to law school to become a police officer. But, a lot of other people could do it if there was anybody around to teach them how to do it. They would, you know. I've never heard of anybody becoming a polygraph examiner certified as well as a paramedic. You could probably find some small, goofy police department that would start you as a lieutenant if you had those credentials. There's, there's regular dumbbell police departments and there's smart ones. Smart ones would go out and hire somebody that was credentialed the way I was, which was a degree in criminology, a 4-year degree. And they would use you because you studied statistics and stuff like that. And we had a course in criminal law that was taught by a judge. He was an ex-FBI agent and a small claims judge, but he was a lawyer, of course. And he taught us basic criminal law. We knew not a lot, but we knew more than most cops knew. So, they talk to you about search warrants and probable cause and visible and, assumptive guilt. And, they give you more than a lot of cops know, But experienced cops pick it up pretty well. So, but they actually, the beat patrol officer that's riding around in a car working foot patrol, they don't know that much about law. They know something. The serious detectives, they learn all about law because they're working with prosecutors to get convictions. And, after even 2 years or 3 years, they know pretty good what's going on, real good. So, they would have a guy like me come in and write grant proposals to various agencies, federal, state, or whatever they were, to get funding. It might be you just write the proposal to your own city mayor's office to get budget funding for something. So these guys would want surveillance equipment, electronic eavesdropping equipment, armored vehicles, helicopters, and they would get a guy like me to write proposals for it, and that would give them, get them the money. So you'd have a department with 50 or 60 guys get funded for a helicopter with a pilot. What does he need a helicopter for? This is what they would do. Some of these nuts would buy a police car for the sheriff or the chief. Or, they would get the top 3 or 4 guys. They would buy the car. They would get funding, and they would buy these cars that they would buy the biggest engines. So if it was going back on my day, they'd get a Chevelle with a 396 or a 427 motor. The really good tires, the shock absorbers, the sway bars, all the stuff for they used to call them like pursuit packages, you know. And the car would usually go about 130 miles an hour, and it would do back then 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds, which is pretty quick. And you know that's what they would do, and they would ride around. This is a guy that's probably 50 plus years old, riding around in a hot rod, plain clothes hot rod, doing nothing but driving to the golf course at 90 miles an hour on Saturday with the darn thing. It's what they do. You know, um, crazy. They just and today now they buy Bearcats, which are very expensive. These are big armored vehicles that could stop a 50 caliber round. And they could hold, oh, I don't know, about a half a dozen guys in the back, plus two in the front driving it, and one driving one shotgun, and they can sustain a Molotov cocktail, toxic gas, all kinds of high-powered bullets to a point, but you have to get probably into a 20 millimeter to penetrate the thing, and they had big rubber tires that would run flat, and this is probably dropping 150 to $200,000 on some vehicle that they're going to use once every 6 months. That's what they do. And then what they'll tell you is if you use it once, you needed it. That's how they justify all this garbage. So, it's just trying to give you a look into it. Recently, Corvette for 2025 came out with a new car that I think is a hazard to the American public. It it has 1,000 and something like 1,050 horsepower. You got to understand how stupid this is. When I was younger, I was a believer in the world, and the Lord was having me make a lot of money. Two times I bought Porsche turbos, and they had about 419 horsepower, and they would do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, and they would go 200. No, they would go almost 300. They would go 160 or so, 170 miles an hour. Not that I ever tried it. And they had four-wheel drive with computer controls on all wheels and super tires and everything like that. And the thing was so fast, it was frightening. It would go 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, which would pin you back in the seat. So when you're getting on the on-ramp on the freeway, and the speed limit is 70, you could nail it. From a roll of 25 or 30, you could nail it and go up to 70 really fast and pin yourself in the seat. But you could kill yourself with this car so easily. It's dangerous. I bought one, and it was Millennium Yellow, and I put about 3,000 miles on it maybe, and then I got rid of it because it attracted too much attention from everybody. And then I bought another one that was like silver gray, and that was much better because it didn't attach, track. Not that many people would notice it like the yellow one. So they're dangerous because if you start opening it up, the people driving don't know, and they're not prepared for somebody coming up on them from behind at 140, 150, 160 miles an hour. And they might change lanes right in front of you. Now, these things have phenomenal brakes. They're very safe in terms of braking. If somebody swerves, you're going to stop so fast. It's like you threw the anchors out. It really stopped. But you could, somebody could turn into you and hit you. Now, the car is built like a race car. It has basically built into the car. It's like a roll cage, So the chances of surviving, accidents with this are superior to a regular car, but it's so dangerous. Now they're coming out with a car. This thing goes 200 miles an hour. And it's 170,000 to $185,000, depending how you equip it. Now, who can afford that? If you leased it, your payment would probably be about 2,000 bucks a month, maybe 2,500 even, or 3,000. I don't know. At least 2,000, and people are going to buy that, and they're going to open it up. And I think cars, most of the cars you see on the street are unsafe at about 80. Okay, I had a Lincoln Navigator. It was one of the best cars I ever owned. It was the big SUV, and the speed limits was 70. And sometimes, you'd pass and you'd hit 80 or 83 or something like that, right? And I found that car was not stable at 80. At 70, it was fine. It was really comfortable. It was luxurious. It was really a nice car. It was four-wheel drive. It weighed over 6,000 pounds. It had automatic running boards that would open. It had a third seat that you could open and close with, um, electric, and but it's not safe. Now they're selling kids and confused people that want to buy a car and drive on the streets that hit 200 miles an hour. There's no reason for anything like this, you know? And if they hit people at anywhere near those speeds, the danger, the destruction to both of them, the car they hit and the other cars that get involved in the accident, could cause massive death. Like dozens of people could get killed. And I've seen people in California drive hot rod cars, Porsches, Mercedes, Ferraris, and where they'll get this close to the car in front of them because they know they got great brakes, and whatever the guy in front of them does, they could stop. But what about the guy behind them? So he doesn't stop, and then he hits the little Ferrari, it shoves it into the car in front of him. But when you start getting into these mega speeds, I was really shocked to see this. They make Bugattis now that have 1,800 horsepower. They go way over 200 miles an hour, these Bugattis. There's a limit as to how fast the car is going to go because of the resistance to the aerodynamics. You're not going to get if you built a car with 3,500 horsepower, it's not going to go 400 miles an hour unless you do all kinds of aerodynamics to the thing. So, how many people in the United States have a Bugatti? I don't even think you can import them into most countries. Okay, and they're coming out with another one that's going to have 2,000. They're rumored. People are talking. The next one will have 2,000 horsepower, and these are in the millions of dollars. And people buy them mostly in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, places like that. But you better believe some jerk's going to take it on the Autobahn and go 220, 240 miles an hour with it. So there's a limit. In 1964, Pontiac came out with a car called the GTO. It was a Tempest intermediate-sized car. And they built it up. They put a four-speed Hurst shifter in there, some kind of muffler package, and it had 3 two-barrel carburetors, if I remember correctly, and it had about 348 horsepower. It went 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, so they lied about the horsepower. It had about 400 horsepower, and it was not a heavy car. And they had the rear end for acceleration not to go 150 miles an hour. So it would probably go 125 or something, 130 maximum, probably not even that high. probably wouldn't even hit 120 with the thing. So it wasn't so much of a severe threat on the street because it was just a high-speed accelerator. I was surprised that Corvette built a death trap like this. And it's a fiberglass car. Well, this one has a lot of carbon fiber. I don't know how strong carbon fiber is, but if you ever look on YouTube for wrecks of Lamborghinis and Porsches, well, the Porsches tend to hold up. The Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, the McLarens, and Bugattis, and when these guys get into accidents at high speed, the car's in 50 pieces. It's not really survivable. You'll be in many pieces. Okay, so enough of my monologue. Let's see what we got going on in the live stream. Uh, Canelo is still the face of boxing. I don't know who Canelo is. Yeah, Caesar would give the people what they want. He used to entertain the people with these gladiator bouts. They used to follow the different gladiators like they follow baseball and football players. Some of the gladiators retired. Not many, but some. So let's talk about the ceasefire. The general framework of the ceasefire is Trump and Biden together are jamming Israel up severely. Um, it looks like Gaza's going to have Hamas will have complete control over Gaza when it's over. Israel will be completely out. They'll be able to smuggle weapons in again from Egypt because we're not going to be in that corridor called the Philadelphia corridor to stop. And all they're going to do is rapidly rebuild and attack Israel again, period. And everybody knows this, yet Biden and Trump want to cram it down Israel's throat. Remember, Trump said he would get rid of Obamacare, and he never did. Do you think he couldn't? Of course not, he could do it. You saw him sitting next to Obama laughing at the Jimmy Carter funeral. Obama probably asked him not to do it, and he said okay. And that's a disgusting thing they laid on America. Okay, so they're not giving all the hostages back at the first phase, which is 6 weeks. They're going to give 33 hostages back. We still did not get a list of who of these hostages are living, so they may try to return dead bodies. I'm serious. That's how they are. So it's not yet signed, but everybody, including the Israeli government, is saying it's close. Now, I haven't seen the Israeli government talk like that. Now along comes Bezalel Smotrich. He's the finance minister. He's a right-wing, what people call Zionist. Okay, he wears a knitted kippah and sits it. He's not an ultra-Orthodox, but to call him an Orthodox is sort of true. But he's a Zionist. In other words, Israel should take all the land back in Genesis 15. Am I such a Zionist? Yeah, God's going to definitely give us the land back. He made a covenant to do so in Genesis 15. All right. So he said that if Israel has to leave Gaza by pulling all the military out, he's going to file for a vote of no confidence against Netanyahu. He's going to call for that. He's going to leave the coalition. He's got 7-8 votes. Ben-Gvir, who is another right-wing Zionist, they are very friendly. And they work together would almost for certain, I would go 99%, Ben-Gvir will also pull out of the coalition. That's 15 votes together. So one's got 7, one's got 8. That's about where they hold. But today, they may get up to combined 17 or 18 or 19 votes because Israel, maybe 20. I mean, Israel's pretty pro in this area. So they will leave the coalition, and I'm sure another 1 or 2 will. And that means Netanyahu has to go for election. And since we're in a war, but we're not in a war now, but we are in a war, but we're not in a war, they would probably the next day try to see if anybody in the Knesset could raise a coalition, which means they have 61 votes out of 120. If nobody could raise a coalition after probably 1 to 3 days, they would schedule a new election, which would be at least 60 days down the road. So Netanyahu would be still sitting there damaging Israel for 60 days. But he would be significantly weakened. Why? Because he's no longer prime minister as he is now. He's a prime minister as a caretaker. So he could not introduce new legislation. He's basically, his wings are clipped, okay? But he would have to behave as a prime minister in time of war, so he would behave with war decisions like he does now. It's just he couldn't push judicial reform or change the taxes or change the law or about taxi cabs or the law about streetlights or anything. He can't initiate new legislation. He can't do much with a budget. He can't. His wings are seriously clipped, but he can operate at about the same level in the war as he does now. So, where does this go? Well, where it goes is Netanyahu negotiating with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. And the way I think the negotiations are going to go is, let's give Biden and Trump what they want. Let's get Trump into office, and then I'll work on Trump. And when Gaza breaks the ceasefire, we'll fly 25 planes overhead, dropping bombs on him very quickly before Trump could go ballistic on us and stuff like that. Probably Smotrich and Ben-Gvir could be compromised with. You see, the real problem that Biden holds the gun to Israel's head, to Netanyahu's head, is if you don't listen to me, the next UN Security Council resolution, I'm going to not veto it, I'll abstain and let it happen. So they've already passed decisions that Israel should leave the West Bank, leave the Golan Heights, not go into Jordan, and probably they can pass another one that we have to leave Lebanon and leave Syria. which is vital to our safety, really is. So they do it, and America doesn't veto it, no one else will. And then they could call for enforcement, which is they raise a UN military force to go in and force Israel out of the West Bank. Now, how the heck are they going to do that? You think the UN is going to raise an army to come push us out of the West Bank? They'd have to come with, with 25,000 troops. Do it, well, it would make it scary, but, you know, they're not going to get 25,000. They're not going to do anything. What they'll do is put sanctions on Israel. What if the sanctions still don't work? Well, they'll increase the sanctions. What if they don't work and they increase them a third time? Well, the last resort before attacking Israel would be to lay siege to it. The sanctions would be grueling, and they would surround us on our borders to stop us from sending anything out or getting anything in and try to starve us out. And that is Zechariah 12. Of course, the West Bank is required to surround Jerusalem. This is Jerusalem. This is the West Bank. So the West Bank wraps around Jerusalem on the north, south, and the east. Now we control the West Bank. So I don't know how that happens. There's 11,000 pro-terrorists living in Jordan. They likely would storm the gates and come into the West Bank. That's one theory. 11, it's 11 million. I didn't mean thousand. It's 11 million that are pro-terrorists, but they're not all going to come, but they don't have to. So I can't tell you from prophecy how this will complete. I can just tell you that there has to be bad guys in the West Bank. So they already got arrest warrants on Netanyahu from the ICJ. Now the guy that's the coming in to be the prime minister of Lebanon is not from the ICJ. He's from the ICC. There's an International Criminal Court, ICC, and there's an ICJ, International Court of Justice, both of which are tied to the UN. So everything here is crazy. And that's what I've been telling you for many months, is that expect many twists and turns and sudden movements. Syria fell in 11 days. That's outrageous. So let me take a quick look and see if we got any updates on my social media. If it's there, I'll get it real quick. On what Smotrich and Ben Gavir have been saying this morning. We'll see if it's in there. If there's nothing there, it means that probably Netanyahu's containing it somehow. He calmed them down. Coca-Cola made a a special Diet Coke can or bottle to commemorate Trump's um, inauguration or something like that. President of South Korea did get arrested, by the way, for his martial law thing he did. They got him in custody, actually. So there's a lot of stress in South Korea right now. All right, still looking here. Nothing. Wait. Hamas made a false claim that Israel added new conditions into the ceasefire, which is not the case. Okay. Cuba is going to release 553 prisoners as part of a deal with the United States, under which American authorities yesterday removed the island nation from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. They'll be sorry for that. Cuba's buddy with Russia and China. Okay. Let's see. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with Hezbollah in Lebanon, but I think in the short term, the new leader of the Lebanon government's going to keep Hezbollah from getting their weapons and starting trouble initially. How it'll develop later on, I don't know. But I think initially that's what he's going to show us. But he may change his tune when people aren't watching it that careful. Jake Sullivan is continuing to accuse Iran as saying that they're, Mikey's saying their interest in developing weapons like nukes is more acute now because they're weaker. They lost their proxies. Well, that doesn't mean the nukes are real. The city of Latakia, which is near the Russian air base and naval base, is under a lot of problems right now. It's an Alawite area, and the new government of Syria doesn't like Alawites, so there's some tensions going on. We did an airstrike last night in the West Bank in Jenin, which is a hot spot. Nablus, Jenin, Hebron, bad spots, trouble spots. All right, let me see if I can pick something else up later. This is right on the point of what, we could, in any minute we could find out the ceasefire was agreed to. If it's not agreed to, Blinken said that the delay is not on Israel, it's on Hamas. I think Netanyahu could just sign the peace deal, and then Smotrich and Ben-Gvir could try to cause a vote of no confidence and then try to opt out of it or something like that. I think Trump would be extremely slow to go to war against Israel, but he would be rather quick to bear down hard with sanctions and things like that. Smotrich's latest statement is he vows to carry on the Gaza war, but he doesn't say if he will thwart the hostage deal. So he might be saying, okay, let's get the 33 hostages out of there. Give them a mass, they're talking 1,000 prisoners in Israel, terrorist prisoners. Imagine if you lived in Israel and you were walking down the street one day and some terrorist ran up on you with a knife and stabbed you 3 times. You went to the hospital, you stayed there 4 or 5 weeks, and it took you 6 months or a year till you pretty much all the way recovered from it, if you ever did. And you find out the twit that did this to you just got released from prison. How would you feel? You getting it now? 1,000 of these idiots. See, something wrong with Netanyahu. Last night, we hit more than 50 terror targets by air, I believe. It could have been artillery, too. This is to push Hamas closer to signing it, but these people don't respond like they're psychotics. They don't respond. The officials are in Israel saying that Hamas is lying about Israel demands. In other words, they're manufacturing demands Israel's making that are not real. to avoid signing it. As I told you many times, it's highly likely that Hamas would sign the deal on the 18th or the 19th, or even on the morning of the 20th before Trump gets sworn in. Okay? They will likely push it to the wire. And they will likely have a few missiles they're going to launch, you know, 10 minutes or 1 minute before the beginning of the ceasefire. Watch. See if I'm right. So I think they might be dragging it out to see what else they could get out of Israel and wait another 3 or 4 days. So Israel is going out in the streets to protest and demonstrate both ways. Pro release the hostages, in other words, do the ceasefire, and the others are saying no. What the others are basically saying, and they're correct, is that this is just going to get us a temporary reprieve while Hamas regroups and builds up their missiles again, and then we're going to have to deal with them a second time, so it's illogical. The logical thing to do is destroy them now while they're at their weakest, and then they're not going to rise up again. So they want to just get rid of Gaza or Hamas while they're at their weakest. And Smotrich and Ben Gvir are strongly in favor of Israelis moving back into Gaza, which we know is going to happen. But probably not under Netanyahu's watch. So is this possible that Netanyahu gets bounced out of office? Yes. I don't think it's that likely. And then the courts would drop on him and he'd probably go to jail. And who would replace him? Well, another despot, as long as this democracy is operating. But it might be more right wing. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to give the 6-week ceasefire. I don't think Israel's going to want to leave Gaza entirely. And they have a really good bet that during the 6-week ceasefire, Hamas will break the ceasefire, and then Israel will become ballistic on them. It's very likely. Gender is in play here. Gender is in play here because he faces jail. If he loses, if they do a vote of no confidence and he's not prime minister, the courts are just going to say all your delays are over. Boom, your jail trial proceeds. It's 3 of them, totaling 16 years in jail. 1 for 10 years, 2 for 3 years each. So Netanyahu, do I think Netanyahu would get convicted? Yes. Do I think he would go to jail for 16 years? No, 3, 4 years. But it would be over for him. And who would take his place? I don't have any idea. There's no strong social hero image running around. Israel could likely just go full right wing with Smotrich and Ben Gvir. If they did that, there would be persecution against the Christians and the Messianic Jews, bad ones. Christians would basically leave Israel. They proposed a law when they got into office that if anybody mentioned the name Yeshua or Jesus in earshot of a minor, they would go to prison immediately. They were determining that to be evangelism. You see, they're trying to blot God's name out of Israel. Would they try to force the Messianics out of Israel and stuff like that? I don't think so. The Israeli Knesset refused to consider their bill. They just dropped it. They don't want any kind of heat like that. So, do I see something like that coming? No, I don't. I see it going in the opposite direction. But what would they do with the Arabs and all that? Well, Ben Gavir and Smotrich would tell Hamas, you've got like 24 hours to surrender, or we're going to destroy Gaza. And they would just start attacking Gaza. What would they do with the civilians? I don't know. They would try to expel them out of Israel, get them into another country, and have all the Jews from Israel move back into Gaza. There's not much left in Gaza. We have to do construction, but that would be the general drift of it. What would the countries of the world say? Oh, they'd go absolutely bonkers, nuts, crazy. What would they do with Lebanon? They would probably continue to stay south of the Litani River in a reasonably modest amount of soldiers just so they could surveillance things correctly. And the same with Syria. What would they do different with Yemen if Yemen kept attacking us? Targeted assassinations, that's about it. More airstrikes. They wouldn't do a ground invasion, it's too absurd. What about Syria? Well, they would continue when they find weapons depots, blow them up. But that's pretty much historical now. We would keep our buffer zone, which goes someplace between 30 and 40 miles deep into Syria, and we would keep the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, plus the new buffer zones. They would rapidly accelerate making weapons inside Israel. Bullets, artillery, missiles, rockets, massive push. Probably attract foreign funding if they had to do partnerships with foreign countries, maybe not. And they would try to get independent of the United States. Would they begin making their own fighter jets? Not possible. I don't think they have the money for research and development. I don't think so. Could this happen? It could. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think Smotrich is softening up. And I think Netanyahu sat down with Smotrich and Ben Gavir and told them what Trump and Biden told him and told him his plan. So I think they're basically going to give Biden whatever Biden wants, within reason, I guess, before Trump is sworn in. They got no choice. And then when Trump is sworn in, try to negotiate with Trump. If they can't negotiate with Trump, well, then they'll have to figure out what they want to do. I think Biden promised to send the bombs and the bulldozers, the armored bulldozers, to Israel if they play ball with Hamas. And if Israel's on board with, we gave all the reasonable demands they wanted, we gave in, we said we'd give them 1,000 terrorists. The other problem Trump has is Trump told them, Hamas, all the hostages released before January 20th. He didn't say some of them. So if there really are 100 hostages and they're releasing 33, Trump is not going to be pleased with that. And on January 20th, he's going to tell them, I told you to release all the hostages. Now do it. Now. Immediately. And they will tell Trump to go fly a kite. And then Trump will tell tell Netanyahu to go light him up. See if you can motivate them, go light them up. So, 50, 100 bombs later, we'd see if they soften up. Would they? No. 900, 1,000 bombs later, would they soften up? No. They would just start killing the hostages and keep it up. Is there any really good way out of this for Israel? No. Only with God. There is no other way. And Israel's slowly learning the lesson. One of the best things that happened to Israel is Trump putting pressure on Israel to sign this lousy deal with Hamas. Cursed be the man that trusts the man. And Israel was trusting in Trump. They made coins about him. They were talking. He was like Cyrus. Gosh, it was horrible to watch this. Now Trump is stabbing Israel in the back, and it's getting Israel woken up. And Netanyahu seems to be going along with it, so they're getting soured on Netanyahu too. This is all good. It's pushing them closer to God. That's what needs to happen. I'm checking the chat here. Now we'll talk about Russia and Ukraine. So yesterday, Ukraine did a very substantial attack in Russia using, I think, Storm Shadows and ATACM missiles, and they went 100 miles deep in Russia, blew up all sorts of stuff, an ammunition factory, oil refineries. And now Russia today has launched their biggest attack on Ukraine possibly ever, with all kinds of missiles flying all over the place, although they haven't used those IRBMs that I know about. They have been blasting Ukraine during the night and today, and it's a really, really big attack. I don't think you should believe Russia's winning the war, because they're clearly not. The amount of damage that this sustained are really huge. And what you should really see is that Ukraine and Russia are destroying each other. That's it. Okay? And Biden is transferring enough weapons and granting him so much aid, it'll push Zelensky into 2026, they say. But there's not enough time prophetically for that, but that's what is going on. So Biden is trying to be a pain in everybody's neck, especially the Donald. In his last few days in office, I mean, he's still right at the edge negotiating the ceasefire. He's got, Blinken running around trying to pull it off. And I mean, I was surprised to see Blinken say, well, we're close, but right now it's Hamas that's interfering, not Israel. Well, it's good if he stays that way, because then Trump will turn the heat up on Hamas. But again, I don't know if he will. So, what's going to happen with Russia and Ukraine? They're going to be knocking each other's lights out. What do you think is going to happen? Now, it looks like we got a war brewing between Azerbaijan and Armenia. It has not yet started, but it looks like it's brewing up nicely. Nicely means it's moving towards war. There's something about a corridor and stuff like that. Azerbaijan is an ally in the front of Israel. So I don't know what's going to happen. Is it really going to pop off into a war? I don't know. Probably, but I don't know when. But yeah, it's probably going to happen. tensions between them have been very high. So this is not a real big surprise, you know. Trying to see if I could get any recent updates on the fire in California. The power in the LA grid went out, so they're in darkness due to the fire. Now it's coming out that America now, I'm on America, has 9 locations in the entire, we're talking about the entire power grid of the lower 48, okay? Alaska, Hawaii would have their own power grids, obviously, as would Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands, okay? Now, the guy in Venezuela said he was going to invade Puerto Rico and take it back from America. Well, if things go the way Jeremiah 50 does, he probably will, with success. So these 9 locations, these are places where there's transformers. If these 9 locations are taken out, the entire grid in the 48 states is over, no lights. Now, are there any prophetic things that make me scratch my head about this? Well, there are. I'll read it. Isaiah 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, the land, it says, and gross darkness the people. But Jehovah shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Now, when they did this chosek, darkness, that's the Hebrew word in Egypt with Moses and Aaron, the Jews lived in a part of Egypt called Goshen, and they had light in their houses. They were able to light a candle, a torch, a lamp. Outside, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was such a thick darkness. So you couldn't really go outside. You'd bang into things and trip and fall. The Egyptians couldn't go outside either. And in their houses, they were unable to light a coal or a lamp or a torch or anything. So how could you have this gross darkness? Listen to me with sequencing. How could you have this gross darkness if you were able to throw a light switch and get your lights turned on? Well, you couldn't. But if the lights don't come on because the grid is out, right, where does that leave you? Well, then God could put the chosek, thick darkness you could feel, murky, moist, thick darkness you could feel, and they wouldn't be able to make anything go. And there are scriptures to that effect in Jeremiah 50:51, where they're not going to be able to light a coal or make a fire. So that looks like it's going to happen, and it probably would require the grid to be out, otherwise it would be not of any value. Okay, you got thick darkness outside, so the people turn all their lights on. Well, they're, going to be able to, if everybody puts their house lights on and stuff like that, and their car lights, they're going to be able to see something. Maybe they'd have, 5 feet of visibility or something like that. I was once driving in the Berkeley Hills, and the fog was so bad that I was in the car and I couldn't see enough to turn my car around and stop going up the hills because it was so foggy. I had to get out of the car with a flashlight I kept in the car, and I shined it around to see where I was, and then I got an idea where the road ended and the width of the road, and I could turn around and get out. But that was pretty bad. And I remember driving on the Ocean Highway in San Francisco, which is right next to the sand of the beach, and the beach was probably, oh, I don't know, 20 yards or so to the waterline. And the fog was so bad. I was driving a Corvette back then. This is going back 45 years or so. But it was so slow. I mean, it was so foggy. I had to drive the car quite slow. There weren't no street lamps on this road. It was basically one lane each direction. Most tourists never knew about this, and you were able to speed if you wanted to on it because the police just didn't bother with that road. You were able to go, I think it was 35 or 45. You were able to go a little bit faster if you wanted to. And in the fog, I was probably running 15 miles an hour. It was so bad. And then all of a sudden, I was out of it, and the fog lit up, and I was so happy, and I just drove regular. Wow. A friend of mine used to live there, and I used to live down by the airport, and we used to hang out together. So I was coming home from his house, and I had this, to drive like this, and it was really severe. So I've been in severe fog, but nothing like Hosek. Hosek, I don't believe, it doesn't say you wouldn't see your hand in front of your face, but I don't know, maybe you wouldn't see your hand 2 or 3 feet away, but it was so bad you couldn't walk. I mean, you'd probably have a pretty good idea where the ground was, but you wouldn't have a pretty good idea about dents in the ground, holes in the ground, rocks on the ground, where the trees were, where things were, and you could start banging into things. It wasn't a good idea. you know, would a blind person be able to navigate around like that? Sure. I don't think they'd have any problem. They knew the terrain. They probably had a stick or a cane. But it didn't say the blind people can't navigate. However few of those there were, it was the people can't see. Okay? So the Egyptians couldn't come out of their house and they couldn't get light in their house either. Yet God allowed the Israelites to have light in their house. That was the scare. That was one of the 10 plagues. It's not a plague. That's not the right way to translate it. It's a hit. Is a better way of doing it. A hit. Now, is it a hit like this? No. It's a hit. You know what I mean? Strike a blow to them. Okay. So, by the time God was getting them to realize that they had to let the Israelites go, and they gave them silver and gold and clothes and stuff to get them to leave, Egypt was a mess. Could we see something like that today? I don't think it's the same thing. Nobody was really invading Egypt, so it's not the same thing. And the Egyptians, so to speak, shot themselves in both feet. They didn't have any invaders. They could have just let Israel go, but he hardened his heart. And then what did the idiot Pharaoh do? He got his armies together and he went after them in the Red Sea. And he said, oh, look, their God opened the Red Sea for them. Well, let's run through it. Well, they hurried up to get out of the Red Sea, and Pharaoh couldn't get out of the Red Sea in time. So he went swimming, and they all drowned. And their poor horses went with them, didn't they? They probably dedicated their horses to false gods. Said that that's what happened, and that was it for his army. If you look at that and you look at the prophecies today, It says that you would get this Jeremiah 16:17, Jeremiah 23. They shall no longer talk about Moses' rescue because this rescue is so great. So is it that the two witnesses have a hand in this? Well, maybe while Elisha's working with the Levites, Apostle John is running around. But no, because he shows up in Zechariah 12:6 with them. No, I don't think so. I don't know how it's going to play out. After Zechariah 12:6, when all the enemies are burned up on the right and the left, that lays siege to us, then possibly one of the two witnesses, probably Apostle John, may take off to Europe and America, help get the people back. I don't know. I don't know. I've asked the Lord about that and I haven't got any clear answer on it. Maybe yes, maybe no. It doesn't talk about any of the two witnesses being with them. You know, let Zion come to mind, ask the way to Zion. If you're in America, it's east. Okay? East. Okay? If you look towards the Atlantic Ocean, there you go. It's roughly in a straight line from, well, you could think that Tallahassee, the capital of Florida, is about lined up with Tiberias, probably Orlando-ish is the straight line to Jerusalem. That's my punt at it. Something like that. Maybe it would be north of Orlando a little bit. I'm not sure yet. Could look at a map, but that's your direction. Then it depends where you are in Europe. You know, most of the people from Europe are going to, I think probably all, most of them, are going to come by land. Ships of Tarshish, I doubt it. Maybe some of the faraway places like England and Ireland, maybe they'll come by ships of Tarshish, or even parts of Paris and Portugal and France, Portugal, Spain. They might come from ships of Tarshish because it's convenient and they're pretty far away. And the ones in India, which is probably a huge amount of people, by the way, they may come by ships to Tarshish, and I'm pretty sure North, South, and Central America will come by ships and Tarshish. But remember, the redemption year is a Shannite year, so it's could be some months more than the 12 month, and during redemption, none of us are going to be bellyaching that redemption's lasting so long. Oh, when's this going to be over? When's redemption going to be over? No, you're not going to be that way at all. You're going to say, wow, this is great. This is great. Every day you're going to wake up and today is a great day. You get out of bed and you say, what great things are going to happen to me today? You will. You will. It's the opposite of what we've been going through, where you get up, oh no, it's still not over. Oh no, we got more to wait. Oh, the opposite. No, no, no. It's gonna be, you're gonna see everything. You know, they're gonna be the ones that are having a good time now. They're gonna be crying, and you're gonna be laughing and having a good time. The roles aren't gonna just shift. Oh no, no. They're gonna shift immensely better for us than they ever had. You're not going to have the diseases, the wars, the poverty, the rotten political leaders. You know, they have all of this. You know, Trump came up with something really interesting. He says he's going to implement it January 20th. And he's calling it the External Revenue Service. External, EX. Internal revenue is the IRS. External is, this is a taxing authority that's going to collect money from foreign transactions. What exactly he means, I don't know. Tariffs, I guess. Taxes for importing goods. I don't know what else it could be. Exporting goods don't require taxes. Unless you're playing ball with bricks, BRICS, then you're going to have 100% tax on bringing stuff into the United States and probably a tax to get stuff out of the United States. Now, what he'll probably do is transfer a few thousand people out of the IRS into the External Revenue Service and put signs up and put them in a building that the IRS has. You know, is he going to get rid of the IRS? Well, he previously talked about it, but I don't hear any more talk about it. Is this External Revenue Service anything that's going to make taxation life better for Americans by itself? No good, nothing. It's really designed as a threat against BRICS. So just so you understand what American taxation is like, is you have a federal income tax. Most people have a state income tax. Not that many, but some people have a city income tax. Not much at all. In New York City, it's not common. Some people would, let's say they live in one state, so they have a state income tax and a federal income tax, and they go to work over a state line. Like maybe they commute into California or something, and then they have to pay double state income taxes. But that's not all that common. And then you have property tax if you own a property. If you rent the property, you're paying property tax due to inflated rents to cover the property tax. Rest assured on that. You're paying tax on utilities like water, gas, and electric. You're paying tax on your internet and your cable TV. Yeah, you are. You're paying tax when you go to register your car, right? You're paying tax every time you make a purchase in probably 44 of the states have a sales tax. There's a few states that don't, Oregon, and, but then they have a high state income tax. So your sales taxes are probably averaging about 8%, right? Then you have a tax on capital gains if you sell something at a profit, or your stock market purchases make you money. That covers most of the tax. So I say somebody that's doing, has a good job and all that, maybe making $100,000 a year or something like that, could be paying as much as 65%, probably 50. Okay? And if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're probably, when you add all the junk up together, you're probably at about 25% taxes. That means you're working poor. If you're working comfortable, like you're meeting your needs, you're probably at 35 to 50%. If you're making like $250 a year or something like that, you're probably up around 65% taxes. So the system is absolutely idiotic. Now, how much percentage do you think the billionaires pay? You think they pay 65%? You're kidding. You think they pay 50%? You're still kidding. 25%? No. They pay far less than that. They hire CPAs that hire CPA firms, and they plan their taxes strategically. They have tax attorneys, and they get their taxes extremely low. And if the IRS wants to fight with them, they don't care. They just bury the IRS in paperwork. Go to court with the IRS, appeal. IRS generally doesn't like going to court if it's a regular court. The tax courts, they don't mind too much, but they just drag it out and fight with them, and The IRS could fight with 2 or 3 of these big guys, but they can't fight with 200 or 300 of them because they wouldn't be able to get anything done. An IRS lawyer, okay, when I was in graduate school, I remember one guy was an IRS attorney who was trying to get an MBA, and he worked for the IRS, so he's trying to work his way up in the IRS. He was a career IRS guy, and they're not the best. Now, I had a friend of mine, a relative of mine, was a CPA who worked for the IRS for 7 years. He had a buddy who was a military officer and then worked for the IRS as an attorney. Yeah, and then he left and went into the private sector. Now, that's what the good ones do. They work for the IRS as an attorney for 2, 3, 4 years, something like that usually. They get enough and they go to the big firms, the accounting firms or the law firms that do this kind of work. And they walk in and say, I went to law school here, I worked for the IRS here, this is the unit I was in, this is what I did. And then the law firm pretty much sits there and says, well, we can offer you this much. You got to work as an associate for 3 or 4 years, then you're a junior partner, around 9 or 10 years, you could be a partner, and that's where the good ones go. The insecure ones that don't like fighting in court, that don't have what it takes to get out there and select it out, they stay in the IRS. So the good ones leave because they're in high demand, because they know how the IRS operates. Same with SEC lawyers, Security Exchange Commission. Now, those are the real money makers. They get out of law school, they get a job with the SEC. Now, lots of people want to work for the SEC, so they get the pick of the cream of the crop. Not the IRS doesn't get the cream of the crop, okay? The SEC does. Because they put in 2, 3, 4 years in the SEC, and then an SEC law firm in the private sector will pay them big money. Like they might start at, $250,000, $400,000 a year. And after 4 or 5 years, they could make $1 million, $2 million a year, depending how good they are and what kind of cases, because this is massive money they're dealing with. So a guy that has been with one of these SEC law firms for 10 years, could have a yacht, 2 or 3 houses, Ferraris, Rolls Royce, they make many millions of dollars. They buy houses with indoor pools, basketball courts, 10-car garages, they really can hit big, huge, huge. Another one may work for Food and Drug Administration and then go work in the private sector for law firms that work with pharmaceutical and medical companies and make millions and millions of dollars, But IRS is not getting the cream of the crop, CPAs, they get plenty of CPAs, okay? And CPAs don't get too far in life, though. They get out of the IRS after a few years, but a lot of them just stay. But some of them get out, they go in the private sector. But there's not much difference between working for the IRS and working in the private sector, unless they manage to build up their own firm, which is very difficult for them to do because they don't have the clients. So they don't really do that well. So I think CPA is basically now 4 years of college and then 2 years to become a CPA, and it's not worth it. Law school is 3 years. So it would be better doing 4 years as an accountant and then going into law school for 3 years. They'd be much better off, and then trying to get a job with the IRS or whoever they wanted to work for, Being a CPA and a lawyer is attractive to the government. So you could work Food and drug, you could work for SEC, you could work for IRS, you could work for the DEA, Customs, Justice Department, millions, education, there's millions of these agencies want people like that. And I think really the biggest payday is the SEC because they're a prosecutorial agency. All they don't do anything except prosecute people. That's all they do. They're supposed to be regulating, and they do with an eye towards prosecution. So if they're attacking people all the time. So there's a huge market for defense attorneys that know the SEC. The Federal Trade Commission is another one. It's a prosecutorial agency, and if you work for them, you can get a good job as a lawyer too. So the government is, in a way, stupid in that they train lawyers to come back after them when they finish. It's just ridiculous. But will Trump eliminate the IRS? I don't know. Here's what they did when Clinton was talking about doing it and Bush was talking about doing it. This is the deal. Studies back then said that you can collect as much money as the IRS does with a 17% tax. So in other words, this was consistent with the Clinton and the Bush Jr. plan. So when you go to the store to buy something, you pay 17% tax plus your state and city sales tax. So what does that mean? Your average on sales tax, let's say, is 8%. You add that to 17 and you got 25%. So, but let me try to make you understand the difference because it is profound. So every time you spend money, you're paying 25% tax, but you don't have a federal income tax anymore. Does that mean you don't have your Social Security tax? No, that's still there. Okay? And you might have unemployment tax, but your federal income tax is gone. What about state income tax? Oh, that still stays there. So if you're living in a state with 9% state income tax, and you got your sales tax and a federal 17%, that's 25, and then you got 9, so you're at 34%. So even if Trump did this, would you really see a benefit? No, not much. Would people like it? Yeah, because you don't have to file taxes. Okay? And it's pay as you go. But it's also better because it's only taxed on what you spend. So if you make, let's say, $60,000 a year and you save $6,000, you don't pay tax on that. Okay? Where now you would have to pay state and federal and maybe even city income tax, but that would be gone. So you would have an easier time saving if you were frugal and didn't spend a lot of money. So you go to the store and you buy, I don't know, whatever, you buy a table for $200. So you pay $34 in sales tax plus the state tax, the state sales tax. Okay, would that get rid of your tax on your water, your gas, your electric, your internet, your property? No, it wouldn't do anything to that. Okay, now what Trump might do is this. See, when they talk about the 17%, they say we can't put it on poor people. Well, why? I don't know. But they say people with a low income, we have to give them, they're going to have to pay the 17%. And then every 3 months, we give them a random amount of a bonus that we put in their bank account to offset what they just paid in taxes. I don't think Trump would do anything like this because it's pretty stupid. But what do you do with people that are living on Social Security? They're living on, let's say, $1,500, $2,000 a month. You know, you're going to wipe them out. So I don't know how Trump would deal with that. I really don't know. You got me on that. Unless he has a system that's not based on sales tax, but I don't think there is such a thing. Now, let's take a guy that buys a Ferrari or a Lamborghini for $1 million or a Rolls Royce, and this is not uncommon today. Okay, so he has to pay $170,000 in taxes. You think that'll make him happy? They'll go crazy. Because they're buying stuff like this all the time. Expensive jewelry, cars, airplanes, boats, yachts, expensive wardrobe. You know, these executives spend $10,000, $15,000 on a suit, man's suit. And they wear them what? They wear them maybe 2 or 3 times, then they give them away or burn them up, whatever they want to do with them. Now you're talking about guys that are making $400 or $500 million a year, or 200 million a year. They don't give a hoot about going out. Let's say it's fall. So what do they buy? They go out and buy 12 suits. Then in October they buy 12 winter suits. Then in spring 12 suits. In the summer 12 suits. They don't go to work every day. You think these people are hard workers. They're not. They're bureaucrat numbskulls. They're Satan bots, and the demons put them in there. Not because of their business acumen, because the demons are attracted to them for some other reason, or they think they're good for something. So they don't go in every day. So the guy might buy 50 suits a year. If he wears them 3 times, he goes in every other, 150 days, but it's probably like twice he wears them. So he goes in, 100 times a year or something like that. Then they buy expensive recreational clothing and stuff like that. And then it comes to shirts. They probably spend $300, $400, $500 on a shirt, $100, $200, $300 on a tie, $1,500 or so for shoes that get custom made to the shape of their foot, and you got the idea, right? But these guys like to spend crazy amounts of money on things. They'll buy a bed for $100,000. They'll buy a piano for $500,000. They'll buy a sofa, a nice sofa for their house, easy $100,000, $200,000, a handmade sofa. So they're throwing money away like water. And now they're paying a lot of taxes. Because the one who spends more makes more, but they're going to have to try to wiggle out of these taxes somehow. I don't know how they'll do it. Maybe they could buy things through their business or something. I have no idea. And I have no idea if Trump will do this, and if he does do it, will he use the 17% figure, or he might say, we're collecting money much better, so we can do it at 12% or 14%. He may do that. 12% people would really get a good shot in the arm for the better. That would make a difference. I have no idea. And he might try to do it without this taxation system, but I don't know how that works. Some politicians wanted to give a guaranteed income to everybody. You hear, just give everybody $1,200 a month. If they're on Social Security or disability, they get the $1,200 also. If they make $500,000 a week, they still get it. Everybody just gets it. Okay. To bolster the economy, would Trump try a guaranteed income? I seriously doubt it, because he would have talked about it if he was interested in that. He's not interested in that. No Satan country is. There might be other ways to do the taxes without the IRS. So the big thing this sales tax does is the shopkeeper has to register with the state to collect sales tax. And then every month or 3 months, I don't know what it is, it's probably varies from state to state, he has to write a brief filing as to how much he collected and make a little form. Usually it's a very easy form. I did this in the past. It's a very easy form. You're basically saying how much you collected each month in sales tax. Then you write a check for that amount. You staple it or paperclip it to your form, and you mail it to them, and that's it. And they rarely bother you. You know, they could come audit you, but you know, I was a small one-man show. What were they going to bother with me for? You know, I would have maybe 6, 8 purchases a month that were subject to sales tax or something. You know, so it was real easy. You know, they're looking for a big retailer. You know, so let's see what Trump does with that. I have no idea. Um, so the shopkeeper collects the money. You want to buy my table for $200? It's $234. If he plays games and sells stuff off the books, he gets massive fines. And if he keeps it up, he goes to jail. So he ain't gonna do it. Okay, he's gonna want to play straight. So he's collecting for the government instead of the IRS. Okay? So you're getting rid of hundreds of thousands of people that are tormenting fellow Americans. And that goes away. And the store is just doing the work. I don't know if Trump will do it or not. He's talked against the Federal Reserve, but that's stopped. He wants to get rid of the Federal Reserve. I think they told him that if he tries getting rid of the Federal Reserve or the IRS, they're going to get rid of him. Setting up external revenue services just to raise more money and enforce his policies against BRICS and show the people that are planning on using BRICS to destroy the American dollar that they're going to get destroyed at the same time. And I think Trump will do that. And I think Trump will use this external revenue thing to do it. Yeah, somebody also said that there's gas tax. Yeah, gasoline tax. That's it. Yeah, alcohol, tobacco tax. I think they tax bullets now, don't they? They probably tax bullets. I'm not sure. They've talked about it. I think they do. I don't know. I haven't lived there in a million years. So, it would help the people, but it wouldn't be that revolutionary. But you would feel it, you would notice it, and would enable you to save more money for sure. People would be encouraged to save because then there's no tax on it. Your employer pays you, you don't spend it, you don't pay tax on it. So people would be encouraged to do that more, which would help reduce the retail debt. And but prophetic time isn't going to allow for anything like this. And if Trump did it, he would still, how would he do it? He would say, okay, starting January 1st, 2026, there's no more income tax. Well, America ain't never going to see January 1st, 2026 as a nation. It's going to be a devastated wasteland way before that. So it's meaningless, really. If it did happen, he'd probably have to keep the IRS. He'd probably lay off at least half of them pretty much right away. and then he would probably wind up keeping 20% of them the first year, maybe 15% the second year, 10% the third year, and then by the fourth or fifth year they'd go away. But you don't have the prophetic time for this, so it's never going to happen. You know, but you do have the prophetic time for his external revenue service because he's starting that in um, 6 days. What is the day of the week in that inauguration? Let's take a look. That's important, isn't it? It's a Monday. So it's next Monday. Next Monday, the 20th. And I think it's in the morning. Let's look that up. If it's free, let's take a peek and see. Let's take a look. They got like 25,000 cops and I think 8,000 soldiers, armored vehicles, everything ready to protect that inauguration. Well, they have to do that. I mean, the country's at such risk. Um, doesn't it tell you the time? I was right, noon. Yeah, it's noon. So the curtain goes up at noon on January 20th. He's probably got a stack of executive orders like this, and oh man, he's gonna. I'll tell you one thing. It's going to be an extremely good piece of entertainment watching him in his early days. It'll be very entertaining, but it isn't going to last long. And I can promise you, people are going to be so sorry they got him into office. He's going to be such a big disappointment, you have no idea. Will he make a deal for Greenland of some sort? Sure, it's essential to help to protect the United States. Does he have enough time prophetically to do that? No, it'll take a year or two to build everything he wants up on Greenland. Will he do something with Canada? He'll try it, but that's going to take longer than prophetic time will allow. You'd have to go to polls and have a voter referendum or a parliament vote in Canada or something, probably a referendum. Then you would have to get terms of the statehood, and then you would have to present them and have Congress approve them, probably 75%, which may or may not happen. And they may go hemming and hawing and spend weeks or months negotiating the terms. And they don't have that much time, but it probably wouldn't go into effect for a year after they decided on what they wanted. Like with the EU dropping out like UK dropping out of the EU, there was a long waiting period before they actually did it. Annexing Mexico, he don't even talk about that anymore. That was such a stupid thing to say. Nothing's going to happen there. Taking over the Panama Canal, and if the Panama Canal people say, well, we won't be unfair towards American shipping, Trump's going to turn around and say, give them a 10 or 20% discount for the next 2 years. So they're going to pay what all the other boats pay minus 10% or 20%. And they might go for that, and they may not. That would be aircraft carrier diplomacy, where Panama wakes up and they see an aircraft carrier group in the harbor, and American planes start buzzing over Panama City, breaking the sound barrier. Oh, they'll come around to, if he wants to do that. If they just offer to reduce the tariffs, it's not going to be enough. Trump wants the Chinese out of there that operate the handling of the containers in the ports, and throwing them out of there would break a contract, probably because China probably invested $1 billion or $2-3 billion to get this done. So China's not going to go out easy. You know, again, it's another Trump pipe dream. If Trump actually decided to forcibly just take the canal, what would China do? Nothing. Think of a way to counter him someplace else in the world. They will do anything. You got to remember there's two Panama canals. One was made by America and given to Panama. That's the old canal that doesn't take the big ships. The new canal, which is much bigger and relatively next door to the old canal, America didn't pay for it, Panama did. So if he steals that, that's sort of like stealing. If he just steals the old canal that America paid for, it doesn't handle the big ships. So it doesn't do Trump that much good. The whole thing is about military moves. So everything Trump is doing here with Greenland is military motivated. Panama Canal is military motivated. Canada is military motivated. And for protection of the U.S. with radar, aircraft, missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, all of that. With Canada, Trump would put troops up there because he has to protect Canada from an invasion. So he'd have to watch it. Mexico, he's trying to do the same thing, but that's not working. I don't know if I told you this. I don't think so. China has been seen building a large amount of barges for invading, maybe I did say it, I don't know, for invading Taiwan that carry a large amount of troops. And these barges have like big ramps or bridges that come off tanks and armored personnel carriers onto the land. So, and trucks and jeeps. So they no longer would need to use a port that Taiwan has a few ports that are heavily fortified with the military. They would no longer need to land in any of these ports to offload their army. They could just land anywhere. There's a beachhead in Taiwan, and they'd use landing ship these barges to get close, and then use that tank. I don't know how long those tracks got. I don't know how long. It could be more than 200 or 300 feet or something, and just drive vehicles off these barges onto these tracks so they don't get bogged down in the sand and the water and land anywhere. Now, America and other countries have tanks that can swim. You just drive them off the boat and the tank doesn't sink. And they probably have some propellers on it and it goes slow. It doesn't go that slow, but not fast. And they could just go on land. Maybe they use the treads, because treads have these metal pieces that stick out. Maybe that would propel them. I don't even know. But they do have tanks that you can do that with. I don't think there's armored personnel carriers, Vs or trucks and stuff that do that though. And they need that stuff. They need missile launching trucks. They need artillery. They need tanks. need a lot of equipment, food, communications, tents, weapons, ammo, artillery, and mortar. They can get all this stuff for. So they're not spending fortunes on getting ready to invade Taiwan if they have no Taiwan. You need to believe that. Okay. Let's pray for this dog, Chico. It is the roommate of Trixie, who passed away. Wondering where Trixie is and keeps looking for her. So she's passed away. So pray for Chico to come out of mourning and be fine. He's not really mourning, he's looking for her. And that's pretty much normal, but some of them can get pretty grieved in mourning. I've been giving Chief a lot of attention, so he's adjusted out of it pretty much, except now he's very demanding of my attention. If I sit outside at night and it was something that I'm watching the iPad, some of the time I got to have him balanced on my lap, and I got to watch him because he starts going, shake his head and grunts and stuff, and I got him balanced on my lap. I don't want him to fall over, so I got to keep my hand on him. Not that anything would happen to him with his long winter hair and he'd be dropping 2 feet or something. I remember when he was younger, before we had the office, we would take him, my wife and I would take him up in the bed with us. He slept in the bedroom. We bought him these dog beds and he liked it. And he'd sleep there, and then my wife, over time, didn't like him snoring. He's a brachial cephalic dog, and they snore. I found it rather soothing, but we used to say, come on up, and he'd put his paws up on the bed, and we'd put him up on the bed, and he'd run around on the bed, and he had a ball. He'd wag his tail and go, like he'd purr a little bit. They do that, And one day he was walking, and the blankets fell off the bottom of the bed where the feet part are, We had a lot of blankets. It was cold weather, and they fell, and they were laying on the floor. And he wound up falling off the bed. And I was standing there watching him fall, and I saw the look on his face. It was sheer horror. But he landed on a big pile of blankets, And he was like, huh? What? Nothing happened? No, it was so funny, he's a real Dennis the Menace, this dog. When he eats his food, wet food, he gets it on his hair. He gets so enthralled with eating food, he buries his face in there and he gets it all over himself, And I don't want to cut his hair in the cold weather. So I don't want to give him a bath in the cold weather and have him shiver for 3 or 4 hours. So I'm just putting up with it. And then some of his fur got matted, so I'm going to have to probably cut that away. I don't know if the groomer can do that. I probably need to get my titanium tin snips and very carefully cut the matted fur off. And we'll get him a crew cut, but it's too soon for that. I don't want the guy freezing. And you can't put those doggy coats on him because they forget and they'll start peeing with this thing on, and I don't know what will happen. I don't like doing that. So I'm just putting up with it, and he goes, and we've got wood chip yard, and he goes and lays down in the wood chips. He's Dennis the Menace. He doesn't care how dirty he gets. I think he likes it. I know when you clean him, when you bathe him and wash him, it does not make him happy. He doesn't mind the grooming, the haircut. That he doesn't mind. But giving him a bath and stuff, he hates it, the easiest way to do it is put him in a bathtub and sit with your feet in the tub on the edge of the tub and just scrub them up and use the hand shower to rinse them and stuff, or I can just put them in a shower stall. But when the weather's warm, we just take them outside and, hose him down. If it's 85 degrees, he's happy to get the cool water. And it just, you could lather him up real quick with the doggy shampoo and then hose him off again. And just let him hang outside in the sun. And then, an hour or two is pretty much dry. When it was really hot outside and they wanted to stay outside, I just sometimes spritz them with the hose, cool them off, and then they're real happy because it's still 85, 88 degrees or something outside, and they're hosed off, and they don't feel it anymore. See, if you run through a shower and you go outside, in 2 minutes the water's gone. With them, it's 2 hours, so they stay cool. I used to do that with dogs, other dogs I had. You just hose them off, and they run around for quite a while, and they stay cool. So, okay, let's go back on my notes and see what I left out. This thing with Israel and Hamas is huge, but people in the world don't understand it. They're more interested in what Trump's going to do. There are unconfirmed reports that Putin was taken out of office. This is popping up, but everybody the people I'm listening to are saying it's unconfirmed, so take it with a grain of salt, and we'll find out if it's real pretty quick. I don't know if it's real or not. We got to wait. It's somebody else took over in the government. And maybe Putin just had to go to the hospital for a while, or he's just feeling sick. We don't know. So we got to wait and find out about this. Russia, this is funny. Russia apparently destroyed the wrong internet cable, and they knocked their own internet out. There's massive internet outages in Russia, huge amount. And it appears the idiots with their taking out cables took the wrong cable out, the jerks. They took their own cable out. You know how bad that is? It's bad. So Hamas again might drag this ceasefire out to the 18th or the 19th or even early on the 20th and sign it last minute, or they may not sign it. They may try to bluff Trump. Prayer request for CM, Charlie Mike, CM, Charlie Mike, CM. Healing for the mouth, eyes, teeth, and gums. Shopping list. CM, healing for the mouth, eyes, teeth, and gums. So I think, let's see if we got any new updates on the peace plan, because this is fluid and it's going hour by hour, and something could pop. Let's see. Nothing there. The IDF four-star general of CENTCOM, Carrillo, has been in Israel this week. That's odd, huh? Easy, Chief. We'll go out soon. Soon, Chief. I don't know. I mean, Biden's ready to leave office, and I don't know why he's here. Maybe to say goodbye. I don't know. Trump may keep the guy. I mean, that's a chance too. Trump might just say, "You dance to my music and you stay." And the guy said, "Yeah, I stay at your pleasure, and I'll be glad to listen to you." I never liked that other jackass Biden anyway. He might talk like that. Who knows? Chief, no, not now. We'll go out soon. Relax, Chiefy. Russia's saying they struck Ukraine's entire infrastructure, which would have to include the grid, the electricity. So we'll have to get more detailed reports from that. Okay, Hamas is trying to scuttle the hostage ceasefire deal by claiming at the last moment that Israel introduced new conditions, which is false. That's not true. We did not do that. No, nothing significant yet. Chief, what do you want? Come here, I'll pet you. Come here. You don't want to come? Okay. You want to bark? Chief's writing a play. He's calling it Born to Bark. One last look here and see if we got anything. I think Hamas may just be playing this out till the last minute. In Haifa, a man was stabbed and wounded, not deceased. So it appears this is a terrorist attack. No, I'm not seeing anything cooking here. Yeah, they're saying that Hamas is trying to blow the deal. I'm picking this up a lot now. Hamas is trying to blow the deal, saying Israel changed the terms, but they didn't. And Blinken said yesterday that the deal is not being stopped by Israel, it's being stopped by Hamas. So remember, if this goes through, I think we're opening the door for Elijah to start working. If it doesn't, then we'll have to see what the Lord has in store for us. Remember, starting Monday after lunch, we got a whole new ball game with Netanyahu and Trump trying to figure out. So if the ceasefire fails, and it looks like it was on the part of Hamas, now lying about Israel changing the terms isn't going to hold water with Trump, because he'll just ask his envoy, "Is that true?" And the envoy will say, "No, it's not true. It's on Hamas." And then what Trump will do is turn on Hamas. And I think what he'll do to punish him is say, "We want all those hostages back right now, but you'll have hell to pay." And if they laugh at him, which they likely will, Trump will make it very uncomfortable for them, not so much on Israel. I don't think Trump's going to let Israel move into Gaza, which is our land. So God will make it happen. That's all. And so let's just keep watching and waiting. I think they're going to drag this one out right to the end and then sign. But maybe not. They're so nuts and so arrogant and so pompous, so full of themselves that they might, and they believe their own lies too, which is a deficiency. They may not sign it. They want to see what Trump does. And if it falls on them, not Israel, Trump's not going to punish Israel. He's not an idiot because then he knows Israel won't cooperate with him the next time. So he's going to punish Hamas. How badly? I don't know. If he thinks there's such a bunch of freaking nincompoops and you let them grow, they're going to start interdicting shipping like Hezbollah. Well, who knows what they'll do? You know, he may get really scared and want to get rid of them. I don't know. I don't know. Trump is not our friend. He's not your friend. People think he is. Watch. I guarantee you by, I don't know when, but I would say by sometime in February, people are going to realize that he was a big mistake. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for better videos and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. My email address is high up in the chat and it's in the description box all the way at the bottom, and I answer questions as best I can. You could send prayer requests in if you want. And these are very, very, very precarious days for the whole world, but they don't know it. But what's happening in Israel is probably 1,000 times more important than what's happening in Ukraine with Russia, but they're focused on that more. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And if something pops that's really interesting, I'll do a live stream all of a sudden. And I do post on Telegram at least 5 times a day. I update at least news over there. And not everything, like I put stuff on YouTube that doesn't show up on Telegram, just so you know. So I'm out. Thank you.